Don't forget, you can reach the latest episode of Potomac Watch anytime. Just ask your smart speaker, play the Opinion Potomac Watch podcast.
From the opinion pages of the Wall Street Journal, this is Potomac Watch.
Welcome back. Another thing that I think strikes the public about this bill is the timing of it. We're now 2.5 years from January 6, 2021. The 2024 election is already beginning. You have candidates out at the Iowa State Fair this week meeting voters. And Fani Willis has been investigating it for much of this time. Now she's brought an indictment, and she said last night that she wants the trial on this to begin in 6 months, which would be right in the heat of the primary season. Bill, I think that feeds into some of the skepticism on the right and beyond the right about what's really going on here.
Of course it does. Look, it's yet another prosecutor that wants to nail Trump. I would prefer these things be settled by the democratic process. I don't believe in criminalizing things. I think that you have to behave judiciously when you go after criminally a former president and current presidential candidate. And look, let's say what we expect does happen. Maybe Trump wins the primary but loses the election. He's not going to be found guilty on all the counts, maybe one or two. There'll be Republicans embittered for years saying the Democrats rigged the election with all these prosecutions. If Trump had gotten a fair shake, he would have won. You can't prove that, but that will be the feeling, that they stacked the deck by bringing all these prosecutions against Trump. So I think we're in a really difficult place, certainly uncharted territory. And I think the same dynamic we discussed at the opening obtains here. This stuff may harden Trump's supporters in the Republican Party. He looks like he has about half or more than half. So he may get the nomination because no one is even close to him, not just DeSantis. And every time there's an indictment, I think people have what you said, Kyle. They start saying the system is rigged against us. And they're not all voting for Trump. A lot of them are making a statement, I don't trust what the government is doing. And so maybe he wins the nomination. The question is whether that will help him win the election. The odds are it doesn't, because he's south with independents. He lost a lot of Republicans in the suburbs last time. I don't see him getting that back. But on the other hand, the race in 2024 looks like it's going to be an indicted former president running against a sitting president who could very well be impeached. And so it could be a matter of whose popularity is lower. And one of the things that makes me reconsider my thoughts a little, Biden is very unpopular. And that's kind of been hidden because all of the conversation has been Trump. And that may come back to bite him. If, for example, black turnout isn't what it was in 2020, that may hurt him in a few states. So I think anything is open.
Part of what makes this indictment, to my eye, a little harder to assess than the federal ones, though, is it depends on these state statutes that are specific and the interpretations of them under state law. And it's harder to read those kinds of things than, for example, the federal fraud statutes that are extensively litigated, and you can go find Supreme Court opinions about what the definition of fraud exactly means in those cases. There is some new material here, Monet. A lot of this looks like it is the same conduct that has been extensively discussed and debated since January 6th and is part of the Jack Smith indictment. But there is some state-specific material here as well, and potentially some that has real legal liability. The piece I'm looking at is there are allegations that Sidney Powell, one of the attorneys working for President Trump, engaged a contractor in Fulton County to go to Coffee County, where they apparently went into the elections office and accessed the voting equipment, the voting machines, and potentially were intending, I don't know if they did, it's not exactly clear from the language of the indictment, but were intending to remove maybe voter data or data about the machines that would be potentially belonging to Dominion Voting. That's the company that made the equipment in that county. And that, I think, maybe is potentially a real problem because physical security is vital to the security of elections and the security of these machines, because once you put a strange USB drive into some sort of voting equipment, it is hard ever again to trust that machine.
Right. I definitely do think that the weight of that specific charge is going to depend on the details that Fani Willis's office is able to collect on exactly what Sidney Powell's contractor did and what the intention was in their interactions with those voting machines in Coffee County. I think it's possible that they might allege they only wanted to gain information about how the votes were cast and what the proper functioning of the machines was. But if they can find any kind of evidence that suggests that they meant to tamper with it, then it probably would be quite easy to demonstrate at least attempted election fraud in that case. But again, it is very clear that in the broad sweep of the charges that Fani Willis's office brought, quite a lot of the actions that they're dinging Trump and his team for are things that, if they truly believed the election results had been fraudulent, could easily be construed not as crimes, but as trying to rectify improprieties in accordance with the law. And so allegations like the voting machines in Coffee County are extremely important in Fani Willis's case, because those indisputably go beyond what the scope of trying to rectify election improprieties would be. And so I think that there's going to be quite a lot hanging on how many facts they're able to collect about those sorts of things and how much they can prove that Trump's team really clearly overstepped obvious bright lines in their conduct in some of those very specific allegations.
Bill, we'll give you the last word, but what do you suppose the effect of this on the Republican primary might be? Do you think that many voters have simply tuned this out at this point? We are on indictment number 4 of President Trump. Or is there a cumulative effect where people start to think that maybe it's not such a great idea to nominate a guy as president who's going to be stuck in courtrooms while President Biden is going to be out on the campaign trail talking to voters?
Well, both are plausible. I think we'll learn a lot more after the debates. I wonder if the indictments are going to change Trump's mind about participating in the debates and getting his own defense out there. But we'll find out a little more about what Republicans, their priorities are. Look, I think it's a great loss right away that we're not talking, even on this program, about policy, about Biden's economy, about the border, about foreign affairs, about the catastrophic pullout from Afghanistan. We're talking about Trump in 2020. And I think that's a loss for the Republican Party. And I wonder how long that goes. It seems you have to give the Biden team and maybe the Democrats credit. It's allowed Joe Biden to be kind of softly in the background and make no noise, kind of like the last election, because it's all dominated by Trump, pro and anti-Trump. So I think it's a bad omen for the whole election that it looks like if this continues, the election will be about Trump and about 2020 rather than about America and what we need in 2024.
Thank you, Bill and Monet. Thank you all for listening. You can email us at pwpodcast@wsj.com. If you like the show, please hit that subscribe button, and we'll be back tomorrow with another edition of Potomac Watch.